In 1951, more than 170,000 people lived in the historic heart of Venice. Today, fewer than 48,000 do, and that number falls by roughly 1,000 more every year. There is a shop window near the Rialto bridge with a digital counter in it, ticking slowly downward like a clock running out of time, and the Venetians installed it themselves, because they wanted the world to watch their city disappear in real time. Here is the part almost no one says out loud. This is not an accident. Venice is not emptying the way it did in the centuries before when floods and plagues and wars did the work. This time, a living city has simply come to be worth less than an empty one. And the people who decided it were never the tourists you would think to blame. They sit somewhere you would never think to look. If you want to understand how a place can be adored by millions of visitors a year and abandoned by the people who actually live in it, subscribe. Fallen Cities follows the places the world still calls treasures, long after the things that made them worth treasuring have slipped quietly out the back door. To understand what is being lost, you have to remember what Venice actually was, because it was never built to be a monument. For more than 1,000 years, it was one of the richest, busiest, most ordinary working cities in Europe. A city of shipbuilders and glassmakers and fishmongers, of families who had lived on the same narrow canal for 20 generations, of children who ran to school across the same bridges their great-grandparents had crossed. Butchers argued over the price of fish. Laundry hung on lines strung between the windows. It was a place where people were born and married and buried, and it was, in every sense that matters, alive. And the reason those families left is stranger and colder than almost anyone realizes. Now walk those same streets on an ordinary weekday, and you can feel that something is missing, even if you cannot name it. The bridges are crowded, the shops are open, and almost none of the people around you actually live here. In a single recent year, the historic center drew close to 6 million overnight visitors and many millions more day trippers, against fewer than 50,000 residents. For every person who genuinely calls Venice home, more than 100 arrive each year just to look at it. The container of Venice is still here, flawlessly preserved. The contents have moved, one household at a time, to the mainland. It did not happen overnight, which is exactly why so few people noticed it happening at all. The decline began as a trickle in the decades after the war, as families chased jobs and modern apartments on the mainland, where you did not have to carry your groceries over 3 bridges and a flight of stone steps. Then, from the 1990s onward, mass tourism arrived in force, and the trickle became a current. Budget airlines poured visitors into the region by the millions. The internet let anyone rent out a spare room, then a whole apartment, then an entire building, to an endless stream of strangers. Each of those changes looks small and reasonable on its own. Together, over 30 years, they slowly rewired the entire economy of the city around a single idea, that Venice was worth more as a place to visit than as a place to live. So why does the word deliberate keep coming up? The answer is not cruelty. It is arithmetic, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Think about a single apartment on a Venetian canal. A local family might pay a modest rent to live there for a year. That same apartment, rented to a stream of tourists a few nights at a time, can earn its owner more in one busy weekend than a family would pay in a whole month. So every time a Venetian family leaves, the apartment they leave behind does not go to another family. It becomes short-term rentals, because that is simply where the money is. By some counts, the historic center now offers almost as many beds for visitors as it has residents to sleep in it. Multiply that one swap across tens of thousands of apartments over 3 decades, and you have the whole story of how a city empties. The same math runs through everything else. A grocery store that serves residents earns less per square foot than a shop selling glass trinkets and refrigerator magnets, so the grocery closes and the trinket shop opens. A hardware store becomes a mask stand. A neighborhood bakery becomes a gelato counter. A school with too few children shuts its doors. Piece by piece, every service an ordinary resident needs becomes less profitable than something aimed at a visitor who will be gone by nightfall. Nobody sat in a room and voted to empty Venice. Thousands of times over, people simply chose the more profitable option, and the more profitable option was always the one with fewer Venetians left in it. You can watch this happen in real time if you know when to look. There are really two Venices now, stacked on top of each other in the same narrow streets. There is the daytime Venice, the one the whole world knows, packed shoulder to shoulder with visitors from breakfast until the last evening train pulls out. And there is the other Venice, the one that surfaces around 9 at night when the crowds drain away. A place of dark windows and bolted shutters and a silence that feels less like peace than like an empty theater after the audience has gone home. The tourists almost never see that second Venice. It is the real one, and every year there is a little less of it. Which brings us to the question the postcards never ask. If Venice is being emptied, who is doing the emptying, and who is getting rich while it happens? Because it is not the tourists, and it is not the ordinary Venetians. Most of them are the ones losing. Follow the money, and it leads away from the canals almost at once. It leads to the investors and property companies that buy up Venetian apartments purely to run them as tourist rentals, treating a 1,000-year-old neighborhood as a spreadsheet. It leads to the more than 1,200 hotels packed into the municipality. It leads to the cruise and day trip business that pours tens of thousands of people into the city each morning and drains them out again each night. Visitors who sleep and spend their real money somewhere else. And it leads, uncomfortably, to the city itself, which now earns more than €1.5 billion a year from tourism, and which, in 2024, became the first city on Earth to charge visitors a fee simply to set foot in its own streets. Sit with that last one for a second. Venice was so overwhelmed by its own fame that it began charging admission the way a theme park does. Look closely at what that fee actually accomplishes, though. It does not bring a single resident home. It funds the machinery of handling even more visitors. The city has stopped budgeting like a place where people live and started budgeting like an attraction that people see. And an attraction does not need residents. It needs a gate, and a line at the gate. A shopkeeper on one of the emptying streets, one of the last of her kind, once put it more plainly than any economist would. She said the tourists are not the ones buying Venice. The companies that sell to the tourists are, and the Venetians are just the packaging, thrown out the moment the box is open. And here is the hidden cruelty of it. Much of that money does not even stay in Venice. The booking platforms are headquartered oceans away. Many of the apartment owners live somewhere else and simply collect the rent from a screen. The cruise passengers eat and sleep on the ship, and leave little behind but the crowds and the wear. So the city absorbs almost all of the cost, the grinding of its stones, the strain on its lagoon, the slow loss of its people, while a large share of the profit is wired off to somewhere it will never see again. Venice pays the bill, and someone far away keeps the change. If you want more stories like this one, the quiet economics that hollow out a city while everyone is looking the other way, take a second to hit the like button. It genuinely helps these videos reach the people who should see them. It is easy to talk about this in numbers, so let me make it smaller. In 2019, thousands of Venetians marched through their own city under a hand-painted slogan, "Me no vado via," which in the local dialect means, "I am not leaving." Their anger was never aimed at the tourists. They were marching for the ordinary things that were disappearing around them: the last grocery, the last doctor, the last school with enough children to keep its doors open. A few years on, that movement has faded for the saddest possible reason. There are simply fewer of them left each year to march. Ask the ones who stayed what they miss, and they rarely mention the crowds first. They mention the small things: the pharmacist who knew their family by name, the bench in the little square where the old men argued about football, the sound of children in the campo after school, which thins a little more every year as another classroom closes for good. One by one, the ordinary anchors of a life come loose, until staying in Venice starts to feel less like living in a city, and more like house-sitting a museum that used to be your home. If you walk through Venice late at night, after the day trippers have been funneled back onto their trains and their cruise ships, you find something the daytime crowds never see. Whole districts of shuttered windows and unlit doorways, streets that rang with families a generation ago and stand silent now. You can stand in the middle of the most visited city on earth and hear your own footsteps echo off the stone because the people who filled the daylight were only ever passing through, and the people who once lived here have nearly all gone. Something else leaves with them, something far harder to measure than a population count. When the glassblower's grandson gives up and moves to the mainland, a craft that took 500 years to perfect goes quietly with him. When the last family on a canal packs up, so does the memory of how that corner of the city actually worked, which festivals it kept, which saint it prayed to, which baker it trusted. A city is more than its buildings. It is the accumulated knowledge of the people who lived in them, and that knowledge does not photograph, and it does not come back. You can restore a palace in a year. You cannot restore a neighborhood that has forgotten itself. And here is what makes it so hard to reverse. Every few years, Venice announces another fix, and almost every fix treats the symptom while feeding the disease. The famous entry fee was meant to thin the crowds, and mostly it proved the city could put a price tag on itself. Enormous cruise ships were finally banned from sailing past St. Mark's Square in 2021, a genuine victory for the fragile lagoon, and yet the passengers still arrive, rerouted to a port nearby, and bust straight back in within the hour. In 2023, UNESCO's own experts recommended placing Venice on the official list of World Heritage Sites in danger, and the city lobbied hard against it and won, protecting the label while the residents kept leaving. The great underwater flood barriers, built over 18 years to hold back the rising sea, can save the stones of Venice from the water. They can do nothing about the far quieter tide that is actually draining it, because none of those measures touch the arithmetic. As long as an empty apartment is worth more than a family, and a souvenir shop is worth more than a school, the city will keep converting itself, one doorway at a time, no matter how many ships are turned away at the mouth of the lagoon. This is the part that should worry far more cities than Venice. What is happening here is stranger than death, and in a way, sadder. Venice will not crumble into the sea and vanish. It is being converted, slowly and profitably, from a living city into a product, a place that will be flawlessly maintained and almost entirely empty, its palaces restored, its canals photographed 10,000 times a day, with hardly anyone left living behind the beautiful facades. A showroom of a city that used to be real. And Venice is only the furthest along the road. The same arithmetic is already at work in Barcelona, where residents have taken to spraying tourists with water pistols. In Amsterdam, which is spending public money to buy back its own center. In Kyoto, in Dubrovnik, in every adored place where a single apartment became worth more empty than full. Venice is not the exception. Venice is the preview of what happens to any city the world decides it would rather visit than inhabit. It is the clearest warning we have of what overtourism does to a place once the money is left to decide everything, and almost nobody is reading it in time. So the counter in that shop window near the Rialto keeps ticking downward, 1,000 or so a year, and the truth it measures is not the one the headlines tell. The locals are not vanishing by accident or neglect, or even by the fault of the tourists they are so often told to blame. Something colder is emptying Venice. One profitable decision at a time, made by people most of them will never meet. The city is being hollowed out on purpose, and the purpose in the end is simply money. Tell us in the comments which beloved city you think is next, and subscribe to watch it happen before the headlines do. The next chapter of Fallen Cities travels to a place that opened its arms to the whole world right up until the morning it began begging the world to leave. Watch closely.